Welcome back, everyone, to the Winning in Life Without Losing Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Peed. I'm super excited to have a special guest with you today as we continue our series on confessions of Enneagram numbers. But before we get into that, I want to thank you for listening. If you're listening to this on any audio podcast platform, I'd love for you to leave a 5-star review, not 4. Don't be stingy with your stars. And leave a comment on anything that you would like to hear me talk about on this podcast or address as we're leaning into different things about creativity and processes and the kind of using Enneagram as a lens to see some of that stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. Would love for you to hit the like, subscribe, and ring the bell. All those actions help get the word out, and I'll help you know when I'm going live or when I'm posting videos. If you are follow along on social media, you can follow me at Dustin Peed, or you can go to dustinpeed.com if there's anything that I could help you with. Would love to chat. Just hit the Let's Talk button. Now, my guest today is, are we considered in-laws? How does that work?
I think so. Whenever I tell people about you, I'm like, yeah, Nick's brother-in-law. And then they're like, isn't he your brother-in-law? And I'm like, technically, I guess yes, but like, if Nick and I weren't married, no. But so I don't know.
I'm not
I
old
guess.
enough to know how that works.
Me neither.
I know Nick and I for sure are in-laws because
For sure,
his
yes.
sister is my wife.
It's like we're in-law laws. I don't know.
Yeah,
Whatever.
double law. Double jeopardy.
law.
I don't know. Anyway, Lauren, or Lulu, as we call her, or even shorter, Lou. Eventually, it's just going to be an L, and then it's just going to be a sound. Is my sister-in-law. She, my wife's brother, is married to Lulu. So
you did it. Good job.
Very similar background. I literally just finished my interview with him. He was the Enneagram 6 that we recorded with. I don't know if Lulu's is going to come out before Nick's. I don't know. We'll just, however.
We should have got a little backdrop to change it or something.
And I'm literally wearing the exact same outfit. It's literally, I stopped recording with Nick 20 minutes ago. Just full transparency behind the curtain. People love behind the stage and access. That's what we're doing here. We're all about giving you access. Yeah, but Lulu, thanks for being here. This is gonna be fun, right? Because you're 7 and you do this one.
I just like to have fun. Yeah, that's what 7's like.
So if she just disappears from the screen, it's because she's not having fun and she decided to leave.
Yeah, or if I just start staring up into space and I'm like, "What'd you say?" And
wait, what's that?
Like, what now? I'm bored. Lost me.
I would love it. Next time I see you wearing a shirt that says "I'm bored."
I actually should get one of those. Would be pretty good idea.
So we've been walking through these confessions of Enneagram. It started with a blog post and recording that I did about confessing to all the things that it's like to be an Enneagram 4, and people were horrified by it. No, I'm just kidding. It was just normal.
4s are scary to me, so I get that.
Yeah, normal 4 fashion. It was intense and full of emotion. But you know, I recorded with an Enneagram 3 already. He cried, so I didn't cry. But yeah, you know, we're just out here confessing because at the end of the day, what this is all about is how can we best interact with people? How can we best love each other? How can we best do life with each other? How can we build each other up? There's so many things in the world that we're just constantly tearing each other down. How can we understand each other more? How can we learn to have more empathy for each other? And I think one of the ways to do that, I've talked about this a lot, is to just be open and vulnerable. And that comes really easy to some people and not so easy to other people. So some people have to force to come on the podcast and open up even if they don't want to. Right, Lou?
That would be me. If anyone was wondering.
Like, your family sort of in the line of laws.
You have to be nice about it. You actually asked, and I was like, I guess I have to, right? Yeah.
I can't say no. I don't want to make anybody mad. But anyway, I'm so glad you're doing this. I think it's fun. I love because I think, you know, you and Nick have kind of been on this Enneagram journey probably about as long as Sarah and I have, and just really understanding who you are and who God has made you to be. I don't shy away from the fact that Enneagram is just a tool. It's not like the sevenness is your identity. This is not like who
Sure.
you are as a person. Like you're labeled as a seven. No, you're still Lauren slash Lulu slash Lou slash L slash yeah. So, like you're still all those things, and that's who
Mhm.
you are. You're not the sum total of your number, but our numbers help us kind of understand each other, like I said, so that we can have
Mm.
more empathy with each other. And so, just like I've been starting all these episodes with, I wanted to get into Jackie Brewster is a coach that has meant a lot in mine and my wife's life. She's actually lives in the Nashville area, just like Nick and Lulu do. But she is Enneagram with JB.com, or if you can follow her on Instagram at Enneagram with JB. But she has lots of really great resources. But if you're like me and sometimes your span is really small and you're like, I just need like a quick reference, just really cool thing. It's the Enneagram Essentials of 125 cards for self awareness and connection. This little piece right here. Good at focus.
Yeah.
So inside there's like a bunch of little cards it goes through like stuff like different basics of Enneagram, different awarenesses, insights, assets, relationships, and so on. But she starts it with this really cool little pamphlet in the front of it that just kind of gives a brief summary of each Enneagram type. And so I thought to kind of start each episode, I would read just the brief paragraph for each Enneagram type so that the watcher or listener kind of has a starting place for this conversation and knows where this person is coming from as this type of Enneagram. And so, Enneagram 7, she writes, is known as the energetic enthusiast. And you can just nod along in total agreement because I know you'll agree with all this. Uh, Sevens love to plan and anticipate positive future events. They tend to be joyful, fun loving, adventurous, strong, and determined individuals who prefer having multiple choices. I can just affirm all of this from knowing Lulu. They want to be happy, even if she disagrees, it's true. They want to be happy and satisfied and don't like to be controlled or limited in any way. They're also likely to be well rounded and affirming, though they are quick minded visionaries who love exciting new adventures. They can also become escapists when they feel trapped or stuck in emotional pain, such as a podcast. I can't believe it says that, but
Wow, how did she know?
that's so weird. Yeah. First initial thoughts on that does all that kind of resonate with you?
Yeah, pretty spot on, yeah.
Pretty. Uh, well, let's dive right in then. What is something that most people wouldn't know about you as an Enneagram 7?
Um, I guess for me personally, I think I'm kind of like, I don't know how deep into Enneagram people have gotten or whatever, but I'm kind of like the off type 7 or whatever. I don't remember the actual word for it, but like the anti 7 kind of type. So I'm more of like I guess they call it sensual 7, where I'm like best with like a smaller group of people. And
Okay.
so it's like I like to be in crowds and like have a party, but like to be socially satisfied, I only need like a couple people that I know really well to like, satisfy that kind of
Yeah,
like
no, we were just
social
talking about
thing.
that. Nick and I were just talking about that in his recording too. This is commonly referred to as subtypes, and that there's three
Yeah.
subtypes for each Enneagram number. That there's
Hmm.
self-preservation, which is very much a defensive mindset. There, it just kind of everybody kind of keep back, and if it's very difficult to kind of penetrate that inner circle. Then there's one to one, which it sounds like you are, which is like a small group, one or two people around you at all
Hmm.
times. It's kind of like your sweet spot.
Yeah.
And then there's social, which is like the group setting, which is like people that just like the more people, the better kind of thing.
Yeah.
The more, and a lot of people equate. I think a lot of people, when they originally think of an Enneagram 7, they immediately go, "Oh, social butterflies,"
Yeah.
right?
And
But
I
that's not
can
necessarily.
do that. Like I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you
It
can.
doesn't like bother me to be in like a large group, but I think, yeah, like
You're
my sweet spot is like you said, like just like a smaller group of people.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think that's a good point for everybody just right out the gate to kind of go, okay, well, I mean, every Enneagram number kind of has their stereotypes and has their generalizations. I think it's good to
Mhm.
know right away that just because someone is an Enneagram 7 doesn't necessarily mean that they're a social 7, that they're always gonna have to be surrounded by lots of people,
Mhm.
but they may just need a small group, or they may equally need like some alone time.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's put on the Enneagram 7 lens glasses and
Mhm.
show us for a second, like, how do you view the world around you as a 7?
Um, it's definitely changed over the years, but I think in general, I see the world. I know I'm wearing my yellow today, but I feel
Squirrel.
like Enneagram sevens are like affiliated with like yellow and like happy and joy. And I feel like for the most of the time, I see the world that way, like through like kind of yellow colored glasses instead of rose. But um, it's like I look for the positive, but I think I know there's going to be like negative things happening.
Mm,
So I think it's kind of like I prepare myself so I'm not like thrown off by the negativity, but I'm also like hopeful that there won't be any this day or
yeah.
whatever, you know.
It's more optimistic
Mhm.
than it is defensive. Like, you're not always like a 6, like your husband, like we just talked with Nick about, like, he's kinda just always, like, on guard. It's about to come at me. When it
Yeah,
comes
like
at me, chop it. You know what I
mhm.
mean? You're just like, "No, things probably work out. I mean, if they don't, we're ready, right? Right?"
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, right. Right. I'm ready. Yeah.
Before we started recording, I was explaining this question to Lulu, and I said, like, I imagine when sevens, like, the view of a 7 is that the whole world is Muppets. That's how
Yeah.
I imagine it.
The whole world is Muppets. I mean, I kind of could see that because when I first answered this question before you like explained a little more about it, I said the world is selfishly unaware of their surroundings, which is kind of Muppety, I feel like.
Yes, I love that.
And
Muppet
so when you
my
said that, I was like, yeah, they're just all kind of like silly little Muppets just walking
yeah,
around.
you bump
So
into him, you're like, "Can't you see I'm walking, being
you're
a
like,
Muppet?" I love that. What do
uh,
you love the most, if anything? I feel like you probably would. 7s are pretty positive, right? What do you love the most about being Enneagram 7?
um, let's see. Probably the thing I love the most is also the thing that I annoys me the most about myself,
Mm,
which I don't know. I don't know if like other numbers have that, but probably the thing that I love the most is that I literally could be down to do anything. Like I'm not picky. Like if somebody invites me to go to like the rodeo, that sounds great. I'm gonna go. But and then if somebody invites me to go to the opera, totally opposite. Perfect. I'm down. Like I'll be ready. Sounds good. But then it also annoys me because then I don't actually know what I want to do unless I'm like invited to do it. Because it's like I literally am like, yeah, I'll do whatever. Like everything kind of sounds fun. So they're
yeah,
like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't really care. Like, and honestly don't really care. But then when I
yeah,
have to decide, it's like, oh God, I have to like pick something.
yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, interesting. So, I know a lot of Enneagram 9s, like, if you ask a 9 to pick or to pick a favorite or to pick a name a top 5 list, like, that just kinda shuts them down immediately because they have a hard time with favorites. So, if
Hmm.
you're in a group of people, I just wanna sit on this for a second. If you're in a group of people or just the 2 or 3 friends that you love hanging around with, and someone's like, "We should go do something," you're telling me your answer is yes.
Yeah. I
Not,
just
"Yes, and this is what we should do." It's just, "Yes."
yeah, like let's do something. But I don't normally like say what it is because it
Yeah.
normally somebody else has like a specific thing they either do or don't want to do.
Mhm.
And because I'm just like, yeah, I'll do whatever, I just usually let other people pick because I'm not super picky about it.
Right. And
So
so but the flip side of that is you feel like you don't really know what you want until you get into it. So maybe sometimes you get into a situation and you're like, I did want to do something. This is not it.
right, yeah, you get there and I'm like, well, this is not really what I thought it was gonna be, but it's kind of like I'm just so excited to go do something with people, and then you get there and you're like, I mean, this is
Also
fine, but not my favorite.
yeah,
I'm
I hear
bored.
that.
It's
All
when
right,
I
let's
whip
get
out my on board shirt.
yeah. I'm bored. I love it. When let's get into some rapid fire. This one's probably pretty easy for a 7, I would guess. But are you thoughtful or whimsical?
I definitely am thoughtful, which
Really?
probably is not what you would think that I would answer. Yeah.
If you asked me, Enneagram conversation aside, if you asked me, do you think Lulu is thoughtful? Just that question, I would be like, of course she's thoughtful. Um, I think the question here is, do you go about life in a well thought out way, or do you kind of go through life just like whatever happens? Like,
I guess it
that's
really. This one actually was kind of hard for me, which is
sure
like I know you wanted to be rapid fire, but
that's fine.
um, because like literally at my core, I definitely am more like practical and like thoughtful about stuff. Like if it's like an actual like very important thing, but but I do like to have fun and kind of bend the rules and like seem whimsical in like how I don't in like how I'm kind of like yeah I'm up for whatever. So I
Mhm.
think it's sort of like I think that's part of the challenge of a 7 also. It's like
Situational for sure.
yeah.
Are you selfish?
Probably yeah
How
for
so?
sure. Um I mean, is it everybody? But I
I would
guess
not disagree to that, but I think everybody different ways.
um I don't know. I think it's kind of like almost the same answer as the other one. It's like, yeah, I'm selfish sometimes, but again, I'm very go with the flow. So it's kind of like if somebody else is like, oh, I really, really want to do this. And I'm like, oh, this sounds good. Like, I kind of would rather do this if like this person's like so gung ho about whatever they want. I'm like, okay, well, I'll do that because that would be fun to see them have fun doing it, I guess. So,
Mm,
and I think a lot of my I guess not like upbringing, but like my 20s, I would say, were that was kind of like me just going along with like what people wanted to do. And then I
mm,
would maybe say, like, oh, this sounds fun. But that usually would never happen, probably because they knew that I would just do whatever.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like 7s are privately selfish more than a lot of like publicly selfish because at the end of the day, you're just there to have fun. The
Hmm.
selfishness in that is that it's about you having fun, but then there's also the just like as long as there's fun being had around you, you're just happy to be in the room.
Hmm. Yeah.
So in that way, you're not selfish. Like I don't have to be the one having fun, but I do have to be in the room. You know
Yeah.
what I
Where the
mean?
fun is happening. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then I
Uh,
could kind of create my own sort of fun. It's like if they're not having fun and I came with them, I was like, find something else to entertain me, I guess.
create my own fun. I love it. Almonds create their own fun. That's what you need to hear today. All right. What's well? I'll say this before I ask this next question. I did the same thing with Nick a little bit ago. A lot of the Enneagram people that I follow kind of coach it through the lens of the gospel and the lens of biblical truth and Christianity. And one of the things that a lot of them include, like Jackie and Beth McCord, who we'll talk about later, they kind of include this phrase of like this Enneagram number's signature sin. Um, and to kind of play, a lot of them kind of tend to be centered around like the Catholic Church's 7 deadly sins, and so
Hmm.
it's really easy for anyone in humanity to relate to these items. And I think 7 is interesting to me because when people hear it, they go, "Well, most 7s I know aren't overweight, but the signature sin for 7 is gluttony." And I
Mm.
think the misconception is that it's glutton for food, but it's
Mm.
really glutton for life.
Yeah.
like glutton for experiences, glutton to be involved. When people think of FOMO, sevens are the ones that usually have the highest,
Yeah.
amount of FOMO in the world.
Yep.
Now we're talking in the previous recording, we don't even know if people say FOMO anymore, but that means the fear of missing out. That I've
If you didn't
forgotten.
know, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, my original question is, what do you envy? But do you see kind of that gluttony playing a part of the thing that you feel like might be missing as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I feel like envy towards people or like seem like they're having a good time, I guess. So I guess
You're not.
that could be like, and then that's like, I want to be having a good time. So then that's probably like the gluttony thing, the gluttony part.
Yeah, yeah,
So, and then, so I think it's kind of like those people seem like they are confident and know what they want in life and are having like carefree. And then like, that's like what I want. And so it's
yeah.
kind of like,
I hear that. I hear that.
um,
Last
but
rapid
yeah,
fire.
I feel that.
What do you thrive on?
Um, Definitely on variety and change,
A
which
change.
most people hate. So
Now that tracks. I'm sitting here with this card in front of you. Like I talked about through this Enneagram Essentials kind of card deck from Jackie, and I've got the Enneagram 7 card here in front of me, and it's listing off, the signature sin, which we just talked about, the divine attribute being joy, but then it says the core desire of a 7 is to be free of limits, right?
mhm.
And so
Yeah.
the opposite of that would say that you thrive on change. So that makes sense. You feel that? You feel like to be free of limits is kind of like, if I can just live there, you're happy.
Oh yeah, it's like the challenge of my past 4 years has been trying to find a job free of limits. So it's very
Yeah.
difficult.
No, I feel that. Hashtag self. Um, all right. So, I think I asked you before we started recording if you knew what your wing was. So what is I think you told me your predominant wing is 8. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
How can you tell that, and how do you see that playing out in your life? Because a lot of us, the way I explain wings is that everybody, well, unless you have a handicap, that everybody has two hands, and that you can use both hands for things, but one hand is more dominant than the other. And so
Yeah.
wings are no different. You can wing as a 7, you can wing 6, or you can wing 8, but one of them is going to be more predominant than the other one. And so for you, you're saying your predominant wing is 8. What does that look like for you as a 7? How do you wing 8?
I think for me it just means like I'm like quick to react to things, like not necessarily in a negative way, but like if somebody like says something and I like have an opinion on it, I'm gonna like kind of come out right away and like speak my opinion on it. I'm not just gonna like wait for everybody else to do it and like, you know, see what everyone else says. I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna be the first one to be like, oh, I yell it out and be kind of loud about
Speak
it. So
first name
yeah,
later.
yeah. And then sometimes I'll say stuff, and then later on I'm like, "Ooh, I probably shouldn't have said that." It's like, "Oh shoot!"
Be the
Oops.
healthy part kicking
Yeah.
in. Yeah, right. Because an unhealthy 8 would be like, yes, if you're upset, it's your problem.
Right. Yeah. So.
I like that. Um, so trying to get here to some people. This is probably gonna be tough for a 7. This is super easy for me as a 4 because I feel flawed in other ways. But do you feel any kind of like incompleteness or defect as an Enneagram 7?
Um. Yeah. I guess kind of like the main one is just sort of like how to express my feelings, which I think I didn't realize was sort of like the defect until I started learning more about the Enneagram and like going to therapy, which is like a whole nother thing that took forever for me to do. But because it's talking about your feelings. But
Yeah.
I think like having any like intense negative feeling was always like very hard for me, and I would just cry
Yeah.
because I didn't know how to be angry or stressed or sad or like have anxiety. Like I didn't know how to categorize them into their separate feelings. So I would just like get overwhelmed and like start crying, and people would be like, "What is wrong with you?" But then I also hate crying in front of people. So it's sort of like I would just run away and try and hide until like whatever the feeling was went away because I didn't really know what to do with it. So
Right. Well, if your divine attribute as a 7 is joy, for you to portray anything else would feel unnatural to you.
yeah, yeah,
And core fears for 7, you kind of touched on it there, is to be trapped in emotional pain.
hmm
So about kind of really understanding how to get out. And I think that's really important what you said there about therapy, is because therapy helps us navigate through those emotions rather than being stuck in them. Because it's
hmm
not good for anyone to be stuck in really any emotion. Like it's healthy for us to kind of learn how to process through the emotion,
hmm
but not get stuck in that emotion, which obviously is super difficult for Forrest, but we won't talk about that on this episode. Um, yes, I pulled up kind of the lines. I feel like you probably know enough about Enneagram to know the lines, but for our listeners, um, there are other Enneagram numbers that each Enneagram number will line to in stress, and then they will line to a different number in growth. And so as you were talking about some of those like stressful situations that you would just break down and cry, I was like, oh, I wonder what she lines to in stress. And 7's line to a 1 in stress. How do you see
yeah.
that play out? I know this is not a prepared question, but I'm just fascinated
No,
by
you're
it.
good.
How do you see that play out?
Yeah, so I think the crying thing was more like I just didn't know how to portray my feelings, but definitely when I'm stressed, I am like a perfectionist. Like if
Mm,
people are annoying me and I'm stressed, I'm like we need to do this thing right now and like let's get it done. Like no like, dilly-dallying, like come on, let's like do that. Like I get like kind of like very like let's go, which is, very one.
mhm.
So, yeah, if I'm kind of like stressed or sort of in a bad mood, I definitely am more like regimented in how
Yeah.
I talk to people.
So in growth or in health, they would say that you're on the health. So it's not just that you're lining to 1 in general. You're lining to the unhealthy side of a 1 under stress, and then
Yeah.
under growth or in health, you're lining to the healthy side of an Enneagram 5. What does that look
Mhm.
like for you? Because I feel like 5s and 7s couldn't be any different from each other as far as the ones that I know in my life.
Yeah, I actually don't think I know any fives, which is kind of funny. So I don't really know a whole lot about fives like in the real world.
Mhm.
Um, but I think when I am like, my best self, I guess, I'm able to actually like be kind of relaxed, which is
Mm,
a little bit hard for me a lot of times. Like it's hard for
yeah.
me to like sit and like read a book or like do a puzzle or something. So I think when I'm like probably winging in health 5, I can like sit and like do a puzzle for like a couple hours and like listen to music, not have to be like doing
All
something
content.
physical. Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit more like intellectual or, kind of just like calming, I guess. Like
I'd say too, what I see in you in that is 5s are the ones that I think are, when I think of 5s, I think they're the most thoughtful because they're the ones that sit with their thoughts the most.
mm,
And so again earlier, like I said, if someone asked me like, is Lulu a thoughtful person? I would say, well, of course she's a thoughtful person. I feel like you're always thinking of other people and you're always thinking of like, whatever you want to do kind of thing. But
mhm,
also like, just think, I know you like this, and so I brought this for you, or I know it's, just like, people, and so it's everything that you do is a little bit more thoughtful. I can see that in the 5 health line for you of going, I have time to sit and think about this. And then what you said too about being able to relax, like 5s are like the poster child of learning, of knowing how to kind of like detach and unplug and relax, right? Because they need
mhm,
that for them more than anybody else.
yeah.
but like I was telling Nick, like Nick was saying, he wings as a 6, that he wings more 7 than 5. And I'm like, well, I told him, I was like, I see you wing 5 when you're constantly trying to get better and to learn new things. Like
Yeah.
especially in the last handful of years, he's always reading a new book. He's always trying to grow. He's always trying to get better. He's always trying to gain knowledge. That's a very 5 way to live.
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting to see that, as you and Nick, your husband, are, side by side numbers, right?
Yeah.
Like 7 and he's a 6, that, his wing to 5 is also where you go in health. I just find all that stuff
Yeah.
fascinating.
That is
When you,
cool. I don't know if I've ever thought of that before. That's cool.
yeah. So like if both of you are 5 in it, it's a
Hmm.
good thing
Yeah.
for you, both,
Yeah.
individually and as a couple, I would imagine.
Yeah. I think we were talking about it yesterday, and it was actually hard to figure out like where he winged more, because I think he's like pretty even. But it could also be because I'm a 7 that he wings 7 more than maybe he would be if I
Right.
wasn't
Because
around,
he's playing the hits.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah. He's playing the hits. I like that. All right. How do 7s best get along with people?
um, yeah, definitely in person, like face to face interactions and like doing something. So, like an experience, not necessarily like, this sounds terrible, but like I am not the like want to go get coffee person. Like that sounds like a terrible time for me. Like we can go get the coffee and then like do something while we're drinking the coffee. But
Yeah.
I'm not the person that wants to be like sitting there looking at you awkwardly having some random conversation with someone I don't know very well. Like drinking coffee. It just sounds like a nightmare to me. So it's like, let's go get a coffee and then like go for a walk and like look at stuff.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. Like,
It's a very experiential kind
yeah.
of relationship, not just a sitting face to face and talking type of
Yeah. Um,
relationship.
yeah. Like, even if we're like sitting, like, I don't know, like at a pool or like go to get lunch, like there's like stuff around that like makes me feel more comfortable. Like if for some reason we don't have something to talk about, then it's not as awkward. Like that's the thing that goes through my mind is like, what am I going to talk to this person about? I don't know. That's
Yeah,
scary.
that's awesome. All right. What is the most important thing to you as an Enneagram 7 in life?
um Definitely community,
Hmm.
I would say. I think like since COVID, community has been sort of like hard for me to find. I was like super busy during COVID, actually, which most people were doing nothing. And so I literally saw nobody except for Nick and like 2 other people, which I know a lot of people didn't see anybody, but you had like neighborhoods where you'd go walking and you make friends with your neighbors or whatever. So I kind of am having to like remake friends with people because it was like 3 years and you don't talk to anybody. It's like crazy. So,
That's interesting. Yeah, I think community for sure for 7s. They want to have their tribe. Super important.
mhm.
Um, what is there anything else for that you would want someone to know about Enneagram 7 that we haven't touched on already?
um, I think that just mm, like knowing that if you're friends with 7 or married to 7 or your kid is a 7, whatever, if you have a 7 that's close to you, if you're not super close to them, then they probably won't be receptive to this. But um, just like maybe asking them how they're feeling every once in a while. They're probably not going to really want to talk about it, but we need to because it's helpful. But
Hmm.
it might be odd the first couple times you ask them, but I would keep asking if you feel close enough to them to do so because it is nice.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. I like that. I think a lot of the things when I ask this question, it comes back to this is what we need more than what we want
Yeah.
type of answers, you know? and
Yeah.
that's super important for us to understand what each other needs. I think so. Awesome, Lulu. Thank you so much. I almost did the L sound. Thank you so much for being a part of this. That was super fun for me. Hopefully, it wasn't too awkward for you since we're just staring at each other talking.
No, not too bad. I have
Yeah,
some stuff in my room I was looking at.
keep you entertained while I'm babbling on about feelings.
No, you're good.
Um, I want to point people to a couple of resources before we head off. I mentioned Jackie Brewster. She's Enneagram with JB on Instagram and EnneagramWithJB.com. Check out all of her resources; they're super amazing. Also, Beth McCord and her husband Jeff provide really great resources and insights for Enneagram, especially through the lens of the gospel. You can find them at Your Enneagram Coach on Instagram, or you can also follow along at YourEnneagramCoach.com. And a book that I would recommend that you read or listen to if you're not a book reading person, or watch a video on, or however you want to consume it. If this Enneagram stuff is new to you, I highly recommend you check out a book by Ian Morgan Cron called The Road Back to You, to help you kind of really understand what this is all about and why we're talking about it all the time. So yeah, those are great resources. Lou, thanks again for joining us.
Yeah.
That was fun and educational, which sevens know existed. Things go hand in hand, but they do.
Yes.
Yes, awesome. Well, that's all for this time. We've got a few more of these Enneagram episodes coming up, but we'll talk to you next time on the Winning in Life Without Losing Your Mind podcast.